All right. What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench Podcast Network and channel, giving a shout out to the rest of the crew: Shad, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right. That's right. For everyone who's tuning in, we always thank you for supporting Behind the Bench and subscribing to the channel, helping the show become the best that it can be. Now, let's get right to it. I know football just kicked off, NFL and college. The WNBA playoffs are soon to commence. The baseball season is rounding up for the postseason. And then you have the NHL that's ready to make its new season debut. But I don't want to waste any time. There's no time to waste. An all-time sports franchise is on the brink of total and utter collapse. And I know that may sound drastic. I get it. But as they say, nobody expected Rome to collapse after being a world dominator for well over 6-7 centuries. And this franchise has been at the forefront pretty much for the past 6 decades, since the 60s. And beginning in the modern era of basketball, they won 10 championships from 1980 through 2010. That's an average of 1 championship every 3 years. That is what you call the pinnacle of success. And 6 years ago, I believe the Lakers had a beautiful opportunity to usher in a true era, a new era, the latest era of Laker greatness. And that was pretty much all disregarded, is the best way I can put it. For a brief moment in time, essentially where a decade was given up for 82 games. And this has never been seen. This has never been done in any decade of professional sports. Not just in the NBA, but also the NFL, Major League Baseball, National Hockey League. And when it comes to this man right here, Rob Pelinka, he has to be ready to go back crazy. There's probably days where, in all honesty, he probably just says, F it. I'm going to get on out of here. He has to be thinking that. It's impossible for him not to. Because 365 days ago, he was celebrated for the off-season moves that he made official. Signing multiple young players to the team or whatnot. And the Los Angeles Lakers, who I'm talking about, they were predicted. It was said that they now have the deepest team in the league, the most versatile team in the league. They have a plethora of young talent on the team, and they was favored to win it all. They was picked to avenge the loss to Denver in the conference finals from the previous season. And a year later, it's right back to square one. They don't know what they're doing. The GM doesn't have an idea. The owner doesn't have a clue. How do you go from high to low like that? How do you go from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, essentially overnight? Well, this is what happens when you throw all your chips in the middle of the table for a guy who I'm going to refer to this season as the eye of the hurricane, I won't even mention him by name. It creates a very chaotic situation, extreme situation, unpredictably predictable and predictably unpredictable situation at the same time. And it also creates cynicism, pessimism, frustration, confusion as to what's going on. And it's easy to target the front office because we have seen this type of behavior and reaction wherever this guy has played pretty much since 2010, but it really showed his ugly head when the eye of the hurricane returned back to his original team in 2014. So now the talk is, it went from last year, Rob Pelinka, that's who I'm referring to, the most hated executive in sports. He's under the most pressure that any executive, general manager, team president, whatever you want to call it, that anyone else who has held that position in the history of professional sports. This is not an exaggeration. These are facts. So you go from last year, oh my God, Rob Pelinka. We love Rob. Rob for president. He should be voted executive of the year. Blase, blase. He's pulling the rabbit out of his hat. He's executing magic tricks. He's at the top of his game. There's nobody better. So now he needs to step down from his job. He's trying to keep the eye of the hurricane from winning any more championships. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't done enough. And I'm telling you, man, it's a head scratcher. And it makes you want to bang your head up against the wall, man. I be feeling like that. I felt like that throughout this whole experience because I knew where all this was going to head because of the precedent that was set before when the eye of the hurricane was elsewhere. So maybe those voices who feel this way, they need to be reminded of what this man was led to do midway during the 2022-2023 NBA campaign. Maybe they need to be reminded. And this is what I'm here for. Maybe they need to jog their memory a little bit. Because it's easy to lose track of a situation of the moves that were made when this man has been led to overhaul this team's roster every single year over the past 6 seasons since all this kicked off during the summer of 2018. So let me show some reminders here. We're going to kick it off right now. Voila. This occurred as the Lakers found themselves, if I'm not mistaken, 6 games under 500, where they were on the brink of missing the playoffs for the second straight year of a team that has been pressed to embrace an all-time win-now scenario attempt where they're not even close to winning. That's the irony of all this. And they cannot afford to let this team miss the playoffs for the second straight year with the eye of the hurricane on the team. Because that would mean and show that they should have went this route anyway, which they shouldn't have. So what happened? When they were on the brink of missing the playoffs for the second straight year, man, it seemed like he pulled a rabbit out of his hat on this one. Because this trade right here involved, 8 players? where the ultimate scapegoat over the previous 18 months in Russell Westbrook, he was traded along with Juan Vizcaino-Anderson, who they signed as a free agent heading into that season after being let go by the Golden State Warriors, who were his previous squad, and then Damian Jones, who was completing his second run with the Lakers after being brought to the team initially during the middle stages of the 2020-21 season. Or I should say the 2021 season. And the Lakers' 27th first round pick were traded to the Utah Jazz. The Minnesota Timberwolves received Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and 3 second-round picks from the Utah Jazz. And all that led to the Lakers receiving 3 players, D'Angelo Russell, who was brought back to the Lakers after originally being drafted by the team in 2015, along with Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt. Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt were recently traded to the Utah Jazz in the Rudy Gobert deal, where Gobert was sent to the Timberwolves. So the Lakers received 3 players, and that is just in this particular deal that involved 3 teams. This was stage 1. Well, let's check out what happened in stage 2. Give me one moment. I will pull that up. Voila. This is stage 2, where Kendrick Nunn, who the Lakers had signed to a 2-year deal beginning in the 2021-2022 season, where he was being lauded and celebrated, was much hype around Kendrick Nunn, who had previously played for the Miami Heat. Oh, man, it was like, oh, Kendrick Nunn's going to be he's going to replace Rajon Rondo at the point position. But funny thing happened. His first season with the Lakers, he missed the entire year due to some unforeseen injury, which it seems like it remains to be specified the nature of the injury. But nonetheless, he played a half a season during his second year of his contract, and he was traded to the Washington Wizards along with 2 Lakers second-round picks and a second-round pick from the Chicago Bulls. And in return, the Lakers received Rui Hachimura, who had lost his starting job to one Kyle Kuzma, who in the previous season was traded to the Wizards for Russell Westbrook, along with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Montrezl Harrell, and a Laker first-round pick and 2 second-round picks. So essentially, the Lakers acquired a player who he's solid, but was a lesser talent than Kyle Kuzma. So this move right here in stage 2, that involved 2 teams. So far of the first 2 stages, 4 teams were involved in this massive overhaul. This was not a trade that happened. This was an overhaul. So let's get to stage 3. Give me one second. I will pull that up for you, because we have to jog the minds of those fans and supporters of the Eye of the Hurricane to remind him that Rob Pelinka has darn near brought in 20% of the league's players when the Lakers have one out of 30 teams in the league to help this guy win, and stack the deck. Voila. Voila. They're at stage 3. That involved 4 more teams. Well, outside of the Lakers, let's say 1, 2, 3, 6 outside teams were involved in this team overhaul, where the Lakers traded away Thomas Bryant, who was brought back who agreed to sign a 1-year vet minimum deal for the 22-23 campaign. After originally, he's part of the real young core, by the way, who was originally drafted by the Lakers in 2017 and was let go after his rookie season to create cap space after they brought in the Eye Hurricane to begin trying to stack the deck and form his third super team. Thomas Bryant was playing exceptional basketball after being inserted to the starting lineup as the center for the team after Anthony Davis suffered a foot injury and missed like 2.5 months during the early stages of that campaign. Thomas Bryant picked up where he left off prior to suffering his ACL injury during the 2020-21 campaign while he's playing for the Washington Wizards. And he broke through as a player during that year, averaging 16 points and 9 rebounds. So he picks up where he left off. And for the Lakers, he helped the team stave off early collapse. And with his hustle, energy out there, competitive drive, his ability to stretch the floor and shoot, the 3-point shot or whatnot, he averaged about 17 points and 8 rebounds for the Lakers. And then once Anthony Davis returned back from his injury, he was rewarded by basically being taken out of the rotation, and he has to be traded. So he was traded to the Denver Nuggets, where he experienced a championship run as Denver won their first championship. And he earned a championship ring out of that. Nonetheless, he was traded there. And the Orlando Magic received Patrick Beverley, who was traded to the Lakers from the Utah Jazz during the beginning of this season and lasted 5 months before he was traded out of there. And the Magic received cash considerations from the Lakers and a second-round pick from Denver. The Los Angeles Clippers received Bones Highland from the Denver Nuggets. And the Lakers received 2 more players, Mo Bamba, who the Lakers were trying to sign as a free agent that offseason. And he re-signed with Orlando to remain their backup. Fans were super excited about receiving Mo Bamba. And he played one half of basketball for the Lakers. And he suffered a foot injury and missed the rest of the year. And now he's playing for the Los Angeles Clippers. The Lakers received Devon Reed from the Nuggets and a second-round pick. So in total, this overhaul essentially involved 6 teams, 15 players, and 9 total draft picks to facilitate this overhaul executed or said to be executed by Rob Pelinka. But this man's fans and supporters, and even fans of this storied franchise, have been led to believe, or they've been trying to insinuate, that Rob Pelinka has not put forth the effort to go all in. When the reality is the franchise has been mortgaged off for the decade. to try to anchor this guy who constantly needs help around the clock. And no matter what you do, it winds up never being enough. But let's go deeper into this, because fans may think, well, this is the first time something like this has happened where a player received a brand new squad mid-season. But I'm here to show everyone who's tuning in that if someone is thinking that, they need to be informed that this took place before, just 5 years prior, when the Eye of the Hurricane was completing his second run and his final season with his original team in Cleveland, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So let's rehash that. I'm going to pull that up for you. Or as they say, smell what the rock is cooking. Voila. There it go right there. Now, this was the first overhaul and brand new squad that man received midway during the NBA season, where this overhaul included 10 players. He got a brand new squad right off the rack, right out the fridge, right out the oven. And the players who were shipped out three of those players in Jay Crowder, Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade were signed as free agents leading into the 2017-2018 campaign. They traded for Isaiah Thomas from the Boston Celtics because star player Kyrie Irving requested to be traded out of there because he found out that the Eye of the Hurricane was trying to trade him prior to the start of the previous season. Channing Frye, who was traded there during the 25-26 campaign. Iman Shumpert was traded there midway of the 2014-2015 season in a mini style overhaul. During the Eye of the Hurricanes' first year back in Cleveland, after playing the previous 4 years down there in South Beach, a la Miami, for the Miami Heat, along with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. So those 6 players, once they brought in Jay Crowder, Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade, and that offseason, including signing Jeff Green, they brought in Kendrick Perkins. Also, the pundits and the talking heads said, "Oh, this Cleveland team heading to this season, they're deeper and they're even more experienced than the team that came back down 3-1 in the 2016 finals." I won't get off into that, though. Oh, man, my God, man. So, and that team underperformed, very similar to how the Lakers of 2022-2023 underperformed during the first half of that campaign. And Cleveland, quote unquote, needed a jolt to elevate the team, to put them in position to make another run to the finals coming out the Eastern Conference. So what happened? They traded away 6 guys and brought in 4 mainly young players, young legs. Larry Nance Jr. and Jordan Clarkson from the Los Angeles Lakers, part of the real young core. Rodney Hood, that was playing out west in the Western Conference, and George Hill, who was still a high-level player who probably performed at his best while he was with the Indiana Pacers. Right? So when they made this overhaul, the pundits and the talking heads said, oh, they got younger, they're quicker, they're more athletic, they should be able to play better defense. And then they said the same thing that they said of the roster that was leading into the season. They're the prohibitive favorite to come out east or whatnot and challenge Golden State for the championship. And within 2 weeks after that overhaul, the team flatlined and they underperformed. And the only reason that they advanced to the finals out of the Eastern Conference is because the conference was so lackluster. There are really no true prime superstars in the East. You had up and coming superstar like Giannis Antetokounmpo, but he was still finding his way. He was, starting to build himself up to that point, right? Outside of that, there was nothing there. The Boston Celtics had a young Jason Tatum starting out and a young Jaylen Brown starting out. There was no bona fide established prime superstar. So, let me close this up here. When I witnessed the original team overhaul in Cleveland, well, I knew why the eye of the hurricane was wearing the Lakers uniform. Well, they were going to essentially give up the ghost or be forced to give up the ghost to help this dude win. And now they have ran out of all options heading into this current season. And it's like I said, let me close this up. Let me close this up right here. And it's like all the smoke and all the heat is being directed towards this man right here who has been led to do everything what he shouldn't be doing on a yearly basis to try to help this guy win. And is leading his franchise into total oblivion. So much so, the evidence is there. Because of the precarious state this franchise is in, which has never been seen before. Even the Clippers had a productive offseason after losing Paul George. And I'm not saying the Clippers are going to necessarily be a prime challenge in the West as far as, winning the conference and competing for a championship. But even you can sit there and say, okay, they were able to take steps to try to fill the void of losing a player like Paul George. And they actually got younger. See, the Lakers are caught up in the vortex because they were led to sacrifice the real young core, which is really all this is about. This is the root of the whole problem, which I've alluded to time and time again, but it's playing out like a fiddle for everyone to see in real time. They went all veteran mode. They brought in all these veterans, but most of the veterans that they brought in, they've aged out. They're no longer in the league, or they voluntarily announced their retirement, or they're playing overseas. It's one of the three. And in the process, a lot of teams that started to build up their young talent, starting in 2018, 2019, now look at those teams, they sitting atop the conference, and it's not going to change. And I think what's happening is fans deep down know this in their heart, but they feel more content in casting the blame on the front office because that's easy to do because they see everybody else with influence in a major platform and the most prominent voices in sports covering the NBA, they're they are dictating how fans react to the situation. And Rob Pelinka is taking all the darts. He is the latest scapegoat. See, every year there's a scapegoat. Coaches, the young core, the veterans that were brought in, front office, the history of the franchise, everything has been sacrificed in this whole tenure over the past 6 years. And this is what Rob Pelinka is finding out. They're in such a precarious situation. They were unable to attract one free agent. We're now in the month of September. Training camp is about to kick off. Free agency starts July 1st. It's been over 2 months. They have not signed one free agent. It's so precarious, they couldn't even get players to agree to sign for tryouts. So think about it. If we're witnessing that this year, then chances are we're going to see the same results leading into the future next year. This is what happens when you let an outside player who has no history with your franchise that ushered in this era of so-called player empowerment. And eventually what happens is you wind up losing your way. Rob Pelinka knows that this franchise is on the brink, but he also understands that the fans of this franchise will have a very difficult time grasping that reality. So therefore, it's like everyone wants to deny the obvious and try to convince themselves that they are a major player in the game. But when you shortcut the game, eventually you're going to shortcut yourself right out of the landscape. And that's what's going on with the franchise right now. After essentially giving up 10 years for 82 games. That's why they have to keep on going through this repetitive cycle year after year after year. And last offseason, when they signed additional young players, Cam Reddish from the Portland Trailblazers, Jackson Hayes from the New Orleans Pelicans, Taurean Prince from the Minnesota Timberwolves, Christian Wood from the Dallas Mavericks, Gabe Vincent from the Miami Heat. Then during the buyout period after the trade deadline, Spencer Dinwiddie. Then they re-signed Vanderbilt for 4 years. They re-signed Hachimura for 3 years. They re-signed Austin Reeves, who was brought in by the Lakers as a rookie, as an undrafted player. So I really don't count him because he was identified by the scouting department, who did a tremendous job in doing so. And then D'Angelo Russell was re-signed with the attempt of trying to trade him, though. You know, he's like a lame duck player. He's lame duck status out there. So much so the man was crying during the trade period because he thought he was going to be shipped out of there again. And the talking heads hyped that roster up last year, saying they had it in the bag. And then fans were disappointed by season's end, and there's no enthusiasm about the team going into this new campaign. And the whole problem is, and I know it's very unpopular to say this, and I get it, but it's showing to be the truth. It was always the truth. And it was always going to show itself down the road eventually. They missed that young core. They missed Brandon Ingram. They missed Julius Randle. They missed Josh Hart. They missed Kyle Kuzma. They missed Lonzo Ball. Maybe Lonzo Ball don't suffer them injuries the way he did playing elsewhere. They miss Jordan Clarkson. They miss Larry Nance Jr. They definitely miss Ivica Zubac. They haven't been able to really, how can I say, stabilize the center position since they traded him. They had about 50 centers up in there since they traded him. And he's with the arch rival who's about to, christen a brand new arena in about another month or so. So what I'm saying is they missed that young core. And a lot of fans who were there to support this shortcut venture, it's very difficult for them to acknowledge that and to actually see it. But when you wipe out an entire drafting phase of players in one large swoop and use them as assets and pawns for this dude to bring in superstars and all these high-level players, basically stacking the deck, basically forming a super team at the expense of this franchise's future. But everything that they've tried to do stands on the back of those young men who were starting out. And I know it in my heart, 150%. So I just want to share that. Remind people what's up. And just showing proof once again, we never should have went this route. But I just want to drop that. I mean, this is no surprise what's going on. It's very discouraging and it's heartbreaking, to tell you the truth, but it is what it is. Until next time, this is JB for BTB Behind the Bench.